Welcome to Backstage at TCT, where we give you a behind-the-scenes look at your local nonprofit performing arts theater. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to hear about our new content. Today, I am interviewing Dan Becker. Dan was born and raised in Long Island, New York, but made his way to Central Texas, and this has been his home for 15 years. Dan, tell us what do you do for a living?
Well, I currently teach Algebra 1 at a charter school in Georgetown. It's called Gateway College Preparatory School.
Okay. And when did you discover that you loved the theater?
Good question. I would say probably that would go back to high school. I had been singing with choir all through high school. Then my senior year, I decided to audition for The Music Man. That was the very first show I was ever in high school. So I auditioned for that. I got a part in the barbershop quartet, and after that, it just became part of my life.
And what high school was that? Because you were in New York then,
Yes,
is that correct?
That was Baldwin Senior High School on Baldwin, Long Island, New York.
Yeah. And you and I talk a lot because I lived in New York City for 18 years too,
Right.
so we have lots of conversations about our New York days. And I'm so excited that we just found out September is going to be, Broadway will be starting back up in New York City, so that's amazing and very hopeful with all this COVID that we've been dealing with for over a year now. Do you remember when you first discovered Temple Civic Theater?
Yes, I do. So I moved to Temple. I moved to Temple in 2006. That's when I first moved to Temple, and I guess I was busy with getting my career restarted with teaching in Texas and everything, that I really didn't have much time for theater. I did, however, start my first performing in Texas. I believe in 2007. I found the Temple College Chorale. Because singing was missing from my life, and so I joined that choir. I was in that choir for a few years, directed at the time by the late Roy Finney. And then in 2012, and also Roy had been often with music direct shows here, so he was always talking about this place, but I never really came over here until 2012 when they had auditions for Oliver. And so I came and auditioned for it. I got a role in the ensemble. Loved it, and then after that, I just kept coming back and auditioning for more. Yeah,
and so you had a lot of fun. Any memories or funny incidents that happened backstage at Oliver?
Yeah, definitely. So there's some people that that I met in that show that I still, to this day, still enjoy doing shows with and still talk to. That's where I first met Sandy DeLugas, who's done several shows here, the Painters, who've done several shows here. I think that was my first time on the stage with Jeff Ellis.
Okay.
Who I know has done a lot of shows here.
Yes.
It was my only full time to be with Tim.
Was that Tim Campbell?
Tim Campbell. There you go. Tim Campbell. It was my first full show the only show I was in that was directed the whole time by Tim Campbell. The second one, I also auditioned in Greece was in Greece as Vince Fontaine that summer, but that was when Tim left and halfway through.
Then we switched to somebody different.
Yeah.
Okay, so you played Dr. Victor von Frankenstein in Young Frankenstein.
Yes.
What was that like, and tell us about that show?
That was a very interesting role. It was a small role. I was only played that part in that one scene. If you're not familiar, it's where Dr. Frankenstein, the main character, falls asleep, and his great-grandfather, I believe, his grandfather, Dr. Victor von Frankenstein, comes out of the painting and tells him he needs to join the family business, because this is when he's like in the middle between being sane and starting to go crazy and wanting to build his Frankenstein. And, it turns into a whole big dance number, as usually does when you fall asleep and your uncle comes to life in a painting. But that whole show was that was one of the best shows, one of my favorite shows that I've been in here. Just a great comedy.
Yeah, it is a great comedy, and we had lots of fun watching that show. The best little whorehouse in Texas. You were the governor.
Yes.
What a fun role. I know it's a small role, but that role, I mean, everybody loves the governor. And you did a phenomenal job.
Thank
Do you have any stories about that show?
Um, any stories? Not that I can tell on air. Let's see. Just that, I mean, it was just a whole lot of fun. I don't know. There was a lot of camaraderie backstage. I made a lot of new friends, people that hadn't done theater here before. Mm-hmm. So I met a lot of new people during that show. It was a lot of good friendships made. Not just with me, but with other people.
With other people.
A lot of friendship started during that show.
That's one thing about this theater as well. And it's a community theater. So all walks of life come and audition and work backstage and work on stage. And it does build a lot of friendships. And you get to meet a lot of new people in this area. And so I've become friends with you and so many other people just by volunteering here the last 3 years as well. So what does it mean to you, this theater, and what does community theater mean to you?
To me, it means it's a place. It's a combination of things. It's, number one, for some people, it's a hobby. For some people, it's almost their way of life. You know, I know people that will do a show every once in a while, or just do one show just to see what it's like. I know people that, there are people that do or the whole season are involved in some show somewhere around this area. I don't know. It's a place. It's a place where just people come together and they just share their love of something, and it's such a great thing. And every show is a different family. It's like you come in, it's like you're a family for 6 weeks. Yeah. And then you do the show, and then you come last, and you leave, and then you do another show maybe a few months later. But then it's a whole new family. There might be some people that you're in the last show with, but for the most part, it's a whole new family. So it's like getting to just make new friends and new family over and over again.
And we do have a lot of cast parties during the production and during the shows. And that also brings a lot of people together and get to know them even better, because when you're rehearsing and doing the show, you get to know a little bit about them, but that just brings people more together, and we have a lot of fun. So
absolutely.
Now you have also been a stage manager for The Old People Are Revolting and Almost Maine. Tell us, what does a stage manager do, and what's the job description?
Stage manager is pretty much the director's right-hand person. They're in charge of everything that the director's not in charge of, which is a lot of stuff. They're in charge of making sure that, taking down the blocking, make sure that they have down on the script where the actors are moving during each scene as the director is dictating it. During the performance and during the show, they're in charge of making sure that the cast is here on time and that the cast knows where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be. Also in charge of all the people that are the other part. They're also in charge of the other technical people, the props person and the lighting person, the sound person, making sure that they're on track. During the show, you're back there with a headset, letting the people in the light booth know when to cue the lights, letting people in the sound booth know when to cue the sounds, making sure actors are on their mark and ready to go, making sure the props are where they're supposed to be.
Making sure we're on time, doing hair and makeup, and getting them in costumes. Exactly,
making sure letting the actors know before the show starts how many minutes it is till places, and letting them know when they're supposed to be at places. Just make sure the show runs smoothly. That's the stage manager's job.
Yeah. And everybody probably doesn't know that there's a little bitty desk behind the big curtain here, and that's where they are for that whole show, with a little head mic on and being able to talk to everybody and make sure everything runs flawless. In Over the Tavern, you played Chet. So how would you describe Chet?
Ooh, Chet. Well, there's a little character evolution there. In the beginning of the show, Chet is or at least comes off as this. He owns a little background on the show. It's about a family, a Catholic family, with 4 kids. I believe it was 4 kids, and a husband and wife, obviously. And they live in an apartment above the bar that Chet owns, the dad. He comes off as very brash. The first scene that he's in, he comes home from work and he's talking about something that happened at work today, and then he gets mad. He gets mad because, man, what was it about? I guess I think it was something about what's for dinner. He just goes into like this crazy tirade. And he goes to the cupboard and just says, I remember there was a tirade about cream corn, and we just had like there was 30 cans of cream corn in the cupboard, and he just goes nuts and just starts throwing the corn and gets mad. All the kids start crying, and he comes off this
Did Chet
very.
forget to bring meatballs or something home? Or I think I remember something.
It might have been meatballs. It was something. I wish. Anyone got a script? He forgot something. I know. Yeah, he did forget. You're right. He forgot something. It's right. He sits down. He starts reading the newspaper, and the woman who played my wife, Rebecca Johnson.
Yes.
Yeah, it might have been meatballs, but she said, "You forget something," and that's when he starts getting mad.
So, but that was a very funny play, and you were the lead.
Yeah.
So,
well, kind of. I was like kind of second lead. The oldest, the son was the 14-year-old son was the
lead.
Was the lead really, but
you were in Chicago.
Yes, I was.
So tell us about that show, and do you have any stories about that?
Okay. Well, that I would say that probably will go down. That's probably my favorite show that I've been in at this theater. It was such a fun show. So many talented people. I played Amos. For those of you who don't know, that's the dim-witted husband, the main character Roxy. It's about, she's the main character, and her husband Amos, who's a car mechanic and not very smart, who's being cheated on and doesn't realize it. And anyway, he has a good song called Mr. Cellophane, and it was just a really fun role. I think the funniest I think the one funny story about the show was there was this one scene, I believe, I forget the character's name, but they were it was just about they were recapping something that happened where there was a scene where we had to have like 3 or 4 people on a mattress, and they were under the covers, and it was insinuated they were doing some things that that we didn't show, but it was insinuated.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of people who sent in some letters about that. I thought that was a little amusing.
Well, we always get shows that not everybody's going to like everything, and sometimes we get letters, good and, saying we don't appreciate that.
Right. But overall, of course, it was a very loved show. It was we had very good ticket sales for that show, and it was one of the most loved shows that we've done here.
Well, thank you, Dan, so much for being here as a guest at Backstage at TCT.